Today is October 9th, 2013, and we are in Aventura, Florida. Could you just introduce yourself to us, please?
I am Dorothy, Kana, Jacoby, want the Zinn too. And I'm 84 years old. I'm going to be 85 in December 4th. And I'm very happy to be doing this interview, and I hope I can remember the things that you're going to ask me.
Can you tell us the origin of your name? Were you named after someone in your family?
Dorothy? No, I wasn't. I was named by someone who was in the, had cows and milks. They had a milk farm near our home, and they were friendly with my parents. And my parents, after 4 children, I was the fourth one. I was the fourth child, and they ran out of names. So the man who owned Silvercrest Farms in Elmhurst, and his name was Dave Schwartz, I do believe, and he's the one that named me Dorothy. But my mother wanted my name to be Dorothea, and they made a mistake on the birth certificate, so I became Dorothy. But my mother liked to call me Dorothea because the Thea, to her, the word was a gift of God. And that's how the name originated. So I'm Dorothy.
Can you tell us who your parents were and what they were like?
Anna and Lee Kana. They were, my mother's maiden name was Meyer. And what were they like? They were hardworking people. My father was a New York City policeman. Before he became a policeman, he worked for the sanitation department, and I do believe he worked for, I'm not sure, right, but he was very proud New York City policeman. And my mother was just a housewife, and she did everything my father wanted her to. They were a good pair. She was more interested in her children and her house than anything else.
Can you tell us about what your mother did after your father died in terms of bringing in income and that sort of thing?
Good question. The police department offered her a job at the precinct to make the beds for the men, because they had cots for the policemen who went to sleep or rested in between. And she thought that was beneath her. She wasn't going to make any beds for anybody, and so she refused it. But it would have been good financially for her, because it was like a nothing job, but she would have had a nice income for her, but no. And when my father retired, I do believe she got a widow's pension of $50 a month. And she thought that was a lot of money. And then they raised it years later, and it went up to $109 a month. But they claimed it was a loan between the $50 and the $109. And she was always worried that she was going to have to pay back the difference. P.S. She never did. And when she used to give me that check to cash for her, she took that out of the envelope and wrapped it up carefully like she was giving me the keys to the kingdom so I can go to the bank and cash that, because that was so much money for her.
And did she also make money by having people live in her house?
Yes, she did. Isn't that funny? Yes, she did. She rented rooms, yeah. And she became so familiar with them and everything, and she did very nicely with that. Yeah, she did. She always had an extra bed or an extra person to sleep in, and she really took it. We used to worry about it a little bit, but, because she was bringing strangers into her home. But she didn't worry about it, because she was friendly with everyone, and all kinds of people.
Did she have people from a particular part of the world who came?
No, she had, her tenants, she had a 2-family house. They were Japanese people, and she was thrilled with them, and they were thrilled with her, and they had 2 little children, or I don't know, maybe 2. And she became their grandma, and they loved her for that.
And what about, it was
the children had never seen snow before. I remember one snowy day, they took a carton and they put all the snow in and they brought it into the house because they wanted to play with it. It was short-lived, but they were thrilled with the snow.
And then Herminio, and she got there was a Spanish family, Armenia, and
Next door to us.
no, they got married up. There was a Spanish family that lived at Howard's, and then their sister got married from Cuba, and then Grandma found them the house next door.
Yeah, my mother had, my mother never spoke any other languages, but she understood them and they understood her. I didn't have patience for
That's
that.
a
but she
gift.
was good, yeah.
Tell us about your siblings. I know that you had several.
I was the youngest of 4 children. My brother was 16 and a half years older than me. I had a sister who was Sylvia. She was 11 years older than I was. And my sister Henny was 6 years older than me, and then I came along. And my father was 40 years old when I was born. In those years, to have a baby at 40 years old, and he was very happy with that.
Well, tell me a little bit about your brother, Ira.
My brother was always a businessman. He would sell anything from under you. He would sell it, and he used to, for the Easter or Christmas, he used to rent the store, and he'd go and I don't know where he got his plants from for the Easter time or his Christmas things, and he'd open the store and he'd sell things. And he was an excellent salesperson, and he used to make a lot of money. I don't know what a lot of money was in those days, but he did. He was able to make some money, and he always had something to sell, and that moved on to selling automobiles later on.
Tell me about your sister Sylvia.
Sylvia was a hard worker, and Sylvia went into her job that she done. She went to school after the children were born. Got her degree, I guess, and then she went into the state organization and became. She retired as a lieutenant in the Women's House of Detention, and she really had some pretty bad people that she had to take care of, and she managed that. I don't know how she did with running home to Murray and to the kids and everything, but she did. She was a hard worker.
Well, tell me about your sister Henrietta.
Henrietta was an RN, and she went through school. She was like the last group that went through the Army. She was part of the Army to graduate as an RN at that time, and they were supposed to be inducted right into the service, but it didn't work out because they cut that out for some reason. I guess the war was over or something. I don't know the years. I can't remember that. But she remained in the nurses program, and she graduated as an RN. And when she was come down to have breakfast in her uniform, I used to make her a waitress. And she was so excited with the thing, and I was a rotten kid because she'd be busy, and I'd say, get me this and get me that and get me everything, and she didn't realize I was making a waitress out of her, which wasn't nice. Now I realize how not nice I was.
Can you tell us where you lived as a child?
Yes, lived in Maspeth. It was 42 Ryerson Street at that time. Then it became, I don't think I remember the address of that. And it wasn't anymore. It was 71st Street, 5217 71st Street in Maspeth, as I do remember. And my father, the house was built on 5 lots. And on these 5 lots, he built with, I think my brother must have helped him too. One garage was housed 3 automobiles, and then there was another garage that was out of the piece of property that was for the tenants. But he built those garages himself, and he's rented them out.
Did you have aunts and uncles who played an important role in your life, specifically maybe Sam and Max?
I could, which one? Max was probably the older of the 2. I'm not sure. And no, he used to come to my father in 1937. My father and my brother opened up this used car lot because my brother wanted to join the Army, and he was 4F. But they opened up this car lot on Queens Boulevard, and Woodside. And my cousin, my Uncle Mike, used to come to visit my father. I don't know, because there was something going on between the family. But he used to visit my father at the automobile place. I never saw him in the house, in our house. I think my mother and he and his family never got along for some reason or other. I know she never got along with her mother-in-law, who was the same name as Hannah, as she was.
Do you remember anything about your grandparents from either side, the Caners?
I remember I was 8 years old when my grandfather from Europe died, and so I don't remember too much. He lived in the Bronx with my aunt, Rose, and it was a third floor walk up, and I was happy to go there. And I remember his bed. He used to have what they called a Bettgewand, which was a feather quilt, but it wasn't really a quilt. It was just unbelievable. I used to go into that bedroom and not realize how he even that he didn't need a ladder to get into that bed. But he was a sweet man and anything. And he used to, when I came, he used to stand at the door with his little purse. He used to keep money in a little purse, and he used to give me money to go to buy ice cream downstairs. There was a candy store downstairs, and because we didn't have that where I lived in Mansfield. And my father was waiting at the door that I had to give the money back. And my grandfather used to get so upset because he didn't want me to take money from him. I don't know how much, it must have been a whole nickel, but that was it. And my grandfather used to come to our house sometimes. My father used to drive to the Bronx where he lived and to drive him home to Maspeth. And he stayed over. I don't think he ever stayed overnight, but just for the day or something. And then he was a sweet man, but I didn't have that much to do with him, other than he used to wait for me with the money.
What about your grandmother?
No, she was dead.
She was
long
gone.
before I was
And
born.
what about the Meyer grandparents?
Well, those were the Myers.
Oh, those were the
Yeah,
Myers.
those
So
were
what
the-
about the Caners? Were they already deceased?
No, the one Canaan was my father's mother. My mother and she didn't get along.
Oh.
They were more Lamas. And she used to have a rooming house in Rockaway. She rented rooms in the summertime. The winter times, at the summertime they lived in the basement, and they had a big round table there. She used to bake for the people who stayed in. She never gave me anything. And what I remember most about my grandmother and my aunt, they were very big bottomed. And because I was a little kid, my nose just came up to the table. And they'd walk around. They used to wear these Hoover aprons. They were clean and starched immaculately. And I used to see them walking around like that, you know. And my father used to stop at Lofts every week and buy parlays for her. That was the name of the candy. And he used to give her $5 every week. You know, that was his thing in life. And my mother never went because they never got along.
Didn't get along.
No. But my father went. And we used to go with them. Yeah.
Did you play with any cousins when you were a
No,
child?
because we lived far from them. We lived in Maspeth and they lived in the Bronx or Brooklyn. I don't even know about Brooklyn, but most of them lived in the Bronx. That was a far trip, and we
What
were the
about
only
the-
ones. We were the only ones that had a car in order to be
What about the family meetings, the circles?
the family circle. Yeah, my mother's parents. As we got older, my mother's family had a family circle, and everybody. And when I brought my husband Howard to the first meeting, they saw that all my cousins were grandparents already, and I was the youngest one. They didn't realize why I didn't, I was too young at the time. So they were all much older than me, so
Much
we didn't play with them or go out with them or anything.
Who were the most important people in your life when you were growing up?
I think my parents. We didn't have visited. The few times that they came to the house was because my father picked them up in the car and brought them. And they used to think we lived in the country. Well, we did. We had nice things. We had a great barber, and my father made a swing in the great barber for me. And my father was very proud of his victory garden. Because he used to plant all kinds of things. Nobody walked into the house without eating a piece of rhubarb or a carrot or something in their corn. Everybody, they used to help themselves to. And my father used to rotate the crops. He used to have a map, and if he planted the carrots here, you can be sure the next time, or tomatoes or whatever, you can be sure that he rotated. He was very proud of that garden, and so was everybody.
Do you remember anything specifically about your school days when you were growing up as a kid? Anything in particular? Any good teachers?
It was far there. Yeah, I remember a teacher named Miss Sweeney, and I was shocked when I found out she was married and had children. Well, because I thought teachers were raised in the school. I didn't know they had families. But, yeah, no, I don't remember that. I remember I had a dog that used to follow me to school. And sometimes the dog would get to school before me. And, then I had to wind up taking him home or whatever it was. Didn't happen too often because by then they were locking the dog in the house before.
What about your dog, Carrie?
Oh, Kerry Blue. My father had a mate that was, what was he? He was Irish. And they were very close friends. Not only they were co-workers, but close friends. In fact, my father was instrumental in getting, John Simcox was his name, getting him a home near ours because they were so close. And he used to speak with a brogue, and my father, imitated the brogue, and he did a great job because they used to think, and they both looked alike, so they used to think he was Irish too, which of course he wasn't. And he got a dog called a Kerry Blue at that time. I think it was an imported dog somewhere. And he used to, I don't know if you know Kerry Blue, they're big dogs, big. And my father made him a dog. My father was very handy. Made him a dog house and weighted it down. And he put the dog on a chain, and that dog used to pull that thing. Used to pull that all around the yard. And they didn't have like nowadays with the dogs. The pot, my mother used to feed him in a pot, and he used to take the pot and bang it on the sidewalk until he got put out. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, we always had dogs.
Can you tell us something about your husband, first husband?
Oh, how can I tell you? He was the life of every party, that's for sure. And he was also very hard working. We had got some money, we borrowed some money, went into business, a coffee shop, and that was very hard to do. Very high rent in a very big place in Brooklyn. And actually the kids, my children were raised there. I used to walk on Kings Highway with the two kids in the carriage and everything, and going to to this coffee shop. And he had a whole bunch of friends and everything. He was the first one. He must have had 8 friends, and he was the first one to get married. And of course, I had so many men at my wedding. There was so many. There were no mates. Girls. Because they were all men, and they used to fool around all the time.
Wait, go back. How did you meet my father, Howard?
How did I meet him?
Okay, this is
Yeah, I was. Oh, right. How did I meet Howard? Oh, Howard. I was very good friends with his cousin who lived in the neighborhood. And I went over one day, and Howard's mother was there. And she said to me, "Oh, I have a nice boy for you. Would you like to meet him?" So I said, "Yeah, why not?" And that's what happened. So, and it took him 3 weeks till he called me up. And my mother-in-law kept saying, "What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for?" And so when he finally called up, I was playing mahjong that night. He wanted to see me that night, and I said, "No, I wouldn't give up mahjong for that." And my mother-in-law was complaining. She said, "What kind of girl is she? She wants to meet a boy, a man, and she won't give up her game." And
Can I intervene? I wasn't there, but okay.
You bet
My
you are.
grandmother introduced my father and my mother. Is that she was at my father's cousin Helen and her sister Pearl. Pearl was Aunt Sylvia's best friend. Pearl went to school with my Aunt Sylvia, and
Yeah, she was a friend of Sylvia's.
and then
And
Helen,
it just so happens that we moved to the same neighborhood. We didn't know about it. We had to meet in the store or something.
and then my father met Grandpa Louis before he even knew my
Oh,
mother.
that was many years ago, yeah.
Can you tell us
Sorry.
about your children?
Oh, my children? No, I don't want children.
Okay, all right, then we're gonna move on to
No,
the next
no,
question.
I do, no.
I have only about
They're
two more
They're
questions.
too.
I was teasing, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it was rough. Leslie was not diagnosed with cerebral palsy until she was almost 3 years old, because in those years they didn't know what they were doing. When I finally found out, then I knew to go through therapy and so forth. And Mark was raised in a rehab, center, because I used to schlep him to the hospitals and to wherever I had to go for therapy for him. I don't know. I did the best I could. I don't know. Well, and then between helping my husband in the store and that's, I can't think. What else?
In 1968, Grandma lived by herself, and when her tenants
In
left,
Ketchum Street.
okay,
And then we moved
okay.
back. Yeah, that's
Wait,
right. My
go
mother had
back
a
to
two-family.
when Grandma bought the house. You didn't explain.
Oh yeah, I went away for a weekend. I come back and my mother bought a house. Because when my father died, the house that we were raised in Maspeth. He knew he was dying. My father, he was 61 years old when he died. So he knew he was dying because he had cancer, and he wanted to make it easy for my mother. So he made sure the house was sold before he died, and he said he would never move out of there, and that was exactly so. And then my mother got an apartment, a small apartment for the two of us, and we didn't get along at all. So that's what happened. I went away with my friends for the weekend, and I came back and I found out she bought a house.
Bought a house. And where do you live now, Dorothy?
Where do I live now? I live in, where do I live? I live in